Starting back with our technical program, the first thing that we have is a panel which I have dubbed Communications in an Entrepreneurial World. Before we start with the panel, I want to remind everybody that there's a competition for the best poster. And so the ballot box for that is at the registration table. It's a red box with a lock and key. We take this all very seriously. So please do look at the posters and vote for the one that you like the best. So I'm going to hand things over to Jordan Melzer, who graciously agreed to moderate this panel, and he promises to make it one of the most exciting, memorable parts of our workshop.
Thank you very much, Ubui. So my name's Jordan Melzer. I was one of Keith's students 6 years ago. And I work for a 100-year-old technology company. So we're more of an end-up than a startup. It's a telco in Canada. But the panel that we have in front of us today is here to talk to you about the other side, about the startup side. Each of them has very different stories to tell, and we're going to start by letting them introduce themselves and their companies. And after they've done that, we invite you to jump in with questions. So without further ado, Kevin, can you start us off?
Sure. Well, I'm Kevin Zhou. When I'm at SC, I'm known as Yu Chen. Last year, I moved back to Taiwan, joined a company called MediaTek. I will give you a little bit introduction to that company. But when I went back there, because these Asian names are very hard to pronounce, they start to use abbreviations. So if I don't have an English name, they will call me YC. So I don't want to be a YC, so I said, well, why don't you just call me Kevin? All right, so I go by Kevin now. I was at the USC from '84 to '89. I worked with Professor Schultz. And after graduation, I moved to Qualcomm. I spent 22 years there, so is Andy still in the audience? I say, if Andy is still in the audience now, I wouldn't talk too much about anything about Qualcomm because it would be useless for me to talk about it. And then I moved to MediaTek last year. I think a lot of people in the audience probably know much less about MediaTek, so I'll give you a very brief, probably a minute and a half introduction. MediaTek actually is a fairly large company with over 6,000 people, and we recently acquired another company of 3,500 people called M-Star, so the two companies combined to about close to 10,000 people. Chances are everybody in this room are using one form of MediaTek's product or another, and you probably don't know. I tell you what we make. Right now, our biggest product or revenue stream comes from cellular chips, just like a Qualcomm's. And this year, we're probably going to become the #2 in the world in terms of smartphone chips, right behind Qualcomm. And on the other side of the business, we also have about 90% worldwide market shares in optical storage devices. So if you own a PC that has a CD-ROM, DVD, RW, chances are has a chip from my company. And also if you own a DVD player or Blu-ray DVD player, we own about 95% worldwide market share in that product. So chances are, if you own one of those devices, you are using one of our chip. We also do a set-top box, and with about 40% market share. So I think Bob was telling me, talking about these experiences. You want people to join the competition, and you say it's easy. If you want people to stay away from the competition, then you say it's hard. The truth is, it is hard in this business. A lot of companies got driven out of the business or driven into very bad shape. And at the end of the day, there are going to be just a few companies left and competing for lower and lower margin business, and with Qualcomm, MediaTek right in the middle of it. So, yeah, if you still think about mobile communication, it's very, very exciting business. It's probably still the one area in communication that generate tremendous volumes in terms of products, but it's also getting very, very competitive. I think I'm going to stop here.
Okay. Thank you, Kevin. So Greg Mitchell isn't in your handout as being part of the panel, but he was kind enough to join us. Can you tell us about your experience?
Certainly. So I was with the USC here from 1988, late 88 through 94. I was one of Bob Schultz's students, and I left in 94 to join my wife, who had we'd just gotten married like 2 or 3 days after I defended. So I had to follow her to her location since she finished school first. So when looking for a job, I decided to stay with a company that I was working with out here, a think tank, a nonprofit called the Aerospace Corporation, which does a number of different types of work within the DoD and other parts of the government. And I followed them out to the DC area to start up a small group. I was one of the first 2 or 3 people that started this group, and I spent about 12 or 13 years with them, eventually growing a pretty interesting R&D organization that was focused on satellite communications, high-performance computing, geolocation, a variety of things that I got a chance to both manage various labs and efforts, as well as do some research in those areas. Around the 2005 or 2006, I started getting an inkling that it'd be kind of interesting to see if I could do this on my own without the care and feeding of a multi-$100 million, I think it's around $1 billion company at the time, and I was very naive. When people ask me nowadays, what kind of advice do you have if I want to start a company as a consultant or what have you? I tell them to do a key thing that I didn't do. I don't have any regrets, by the way, but it's something that I wish I had done, which is get a large piece of paper and start writing down all the things that you need to do your job. So, an office, just somebody to empty your trash cans if you need that, someone to deal with security for you, whatever laboratory equipment that you need, a laboratory, something as simple as MATLAB, books, healthcare, all those kinds of things. Just write it down on a piece of paper and figure out which things you can manage or do without, and which things you'll have to get. And I realized over time I've been able to keep things going, and it really does take there's a lot of infrastructure that's required to do the kind of job that I do. But I've been really happy. I started this company called Aaron Technologies, which is focused on a sort of a niche consulting area within the DoD and the IC. And we solve some of the same kinds of problems related to satellite communications, geolocation, et cetera. But what we were trying to do is solve them maybe a little bit more efficiently using the kinds of infrastructure that that you'll find in industry. Very, very smart people. Very good compute resources, good laboratories, and really solid knowledge of these important problems. So when we talk about small business, we are really a small business. We're under 10 people still, and we're growing slowly, but we're able to solve some really, really good problems, some really interesting problems. But it's different than a company where you're selling a product, mass marketing. In our case, we are. We're selling intellectual, experience and so forth. We, kind of one of the things that we do a lot is, when we solve a problem, we're giving everything, giving all the IP to the customers and to the community that has access to it. We're, very, very open source oriented within our small community, and the folks that I have that work with us are, real excited about that because it forces us to continue to innovate and do things newer and better and different than we've done. And so I've got a lot to say, both positive and negative. But overall, I've really enjoyed the process of both starting a company and keeping it going. And though we're not huge, I like to always reflect back on when you hear politicians say that the small business is the fuel of the economy. So we're trying to do our best to help fuel our economy, and I think I'll stick with it for a little bit longer for sure. I'll answer lots of questions if you have them.
Okay, can you hear me? So my name is An Hui Yang. It's my pleasure to come back to USC to share my experience with my early startup. Well, when I accepted the invitation from Apache, I did not know that Dr. Andrew White would be in the audience, so otherwise I would say no. So, so before talking to myself, I'd like to take this opportunity to really thank the organizer for organizing this special panel discussion session. I think with the so much discussion about job creation and innovation around the world, the commercialization and tech transfer are more important than ever. So traditionally, I'm now at University of Waterloo as a professor. So traditionally, our job as a professor, as a researcher, is to educate people, right, and to advance our own research field by publishing papers. I think nowadays society probably expects more from us. It expects us to go beyond those two traditional roles, by probably engage some kind of startup commercialization. Okay. Put it another way, I would say the research is not completed until it is transferred to benefit society, okay, which may take longer, okay, than most of us expect. So in that sense, the paper publication and IP protection are not the end of one's research. They are just the end of the beginning of long process involving commercialization and technology transfer. So my first positive message for all of you today is that, okay, if you want to go beyond those two traditional roles, and if you want to engage commercialization, startup, and the tech transfer, I believe so you can do well, you will do well. Why? Because you can do better than myself, okay? So this brings to the brief introduction to myself. So I came to USC at the end of the 1993 as a visiting scholar from mainland China, actually. Thanks to the helps of many professors at CSI, so I was allowed to take the PhD program. So then within, I think the next 2.5 years, I completed my second PhD. So then I joined University of Waterloo in 1997, so as assistant professor. So so my background actually is pretty theoretical. If you talk to, as Marvin was my classmate. If you're going to compare myself with Marvin, you would say that I'm pretty theoretical guy, okay? So this is why I'm saying that you can do better than I do, right? So let me now talk about the, well, actually, all days, right? If you read my papers, all my papers about the proof theorem, so because I'm working in the information theory. So when I joined University of Waterloo, then I decided that probably I need to prove a different type of theorems, okay? So then in 2000, I decided to co-found a company. I think the first thing you need, right, is name, okay? I was pretty naive at that time, okay? So one of my colleagues and myself sat in my office. We need to come up with a name for your startup company, right? So the first name I thought is the 3C, because at that time the society was discussing the convergence of communication and computing, right? I said 3C, was a good name. So I tried 3C over the internet. It didn't work because the name was used, right? And then I tried 3C info. Well, it didn't work. It was used again. And at the end, I tried 3C info attack. So then by the time when I got VC funding in, I think in early 2002, the VC and other people didn't like the names. People say they don't know what's the meaning of the name. So eventually we changed the name to Slipstream Data. So what we are doing is that back in late 90s, I invented with my co-workers the lossless compression algorithm. So we decided to combine that compression algorithm into some network optimization to develop a software which can speed up internet connection. Okay, so we have client. So we have this piece of software sitting on the client, and we also have the proxy server, okay, in the backbone of internet. So we are trying to basically speed up the internet connection speed, and that was pretty challenging because compression is important, but compression is not the final solution, right? Because you need really good compression, but also you need the online really fast compression, because the end of objective is to speed up internet connection. Luckily, we got our VC funding after September 11, after Enron 1. So I think actually that was the first VC funding in our community, so after September 11. So a year later, luckily, we signed a lot of the large ISP, even in the United States. So most large ISP became our customers. So 1 year later, so we have become profitable. So by the 2006, the company grows to have more than 70 people. And then I decided probably it's hard for me to handle as a professor, because as a kind of additional job, right? So then I decided to sell the company. So the company was acquired in 2006 by Research in Motion, which I think is pioneer of smartphone. So even though now they're a little struggling, but I think eventually they're okay. So I think I stop here, maybe answer question later.
Okay, thank you. Tom, would you like to?
I'm Tom Carter. I'm President and CEO of Trellisware Technologies. I didn't drop out of college to start that, which is probably why I'm not a billionaire. In fact, I should give Dan Sullivan credit. I worked for TRW for 13 years, and they paid for me to come through the PhD program here. I got my PhD under Chuck Weber in the early 80s. Trellisware actually is my second startup, although I didn't found the first one. I started with a company called Viasat in 1990, and joined as VP of engineering when they had 15 engineers at the company, and moved into the general manager position before they did their IPO. And over the course of the 10 years I was there, I think the first year I was there, we did about $1 million in sales. Over the 10 years I was there, when we spun off Trellisware, I think we were doing a couple orders of magnitude more than that in sales per year. And I'm proud to say today they're about a $750 million company and going strong. So I view that as one success, and I'm hoping we can have Trellisware follow in the same footsteps. In 2000, we decided to spin off Trellisware from Viasat. We had some technology that we'd been developing that didn't really fit their business model well. As the name implies, they do satellite communications and some air-to-air things, and we had some technology that worked in really demanding communications environments that you don't find too much in satellites and air-to-air. And actually had Professors Andreas Polidorus and Keith Chugg consulting from USC here, consulting with us on that technology. And we decided that I eventually convinced the CEO for Viasat that we should spin off a company to go pursue that technology and with a business model where it actually could fit. And Keith and Andreas decided to fold their consulting company and join me as co-founders in Trellisware. From a personal point of view, I think, as I said, Viasat was getting bigger, and I felt like their trying to make me a bureaucrat, so I was interested in getting back a little closer to the technology, and also interested in seeing what I could do maybe as number one versus number two. So that we founded Trellisware in 2000, and we've been growing ever since. We're at about 80 people now in San Diego. We expect to grow about 50% this year, and hopefully the same amount or more next year. We started off, we learned a lot of things along the way. I could probably spend a lot of time telling you all the lessons learned and things to avoid going forward, but I don't have that time. So I'll just mention a couple things. One, we started off hoping to be an IP company and build software and firmware that we could license, and we actually did okay at that, but we found out pretty quickly that while people are very happy to pay you up front for something that gets them ahead of their competitors, after a while they wonder why they're still paying you for the same thing and want to try to design you out or find a competitor to replace you. So you need to continually refresh that technology, and it becomes a very difficult business model to build to any size. So we decided we needed to wrap hardware around our IP, and actually if we wanted recurring sales, we needed to sell hardware. So that's what we've done, and we actually build products from components that go into other people's systems to full systems in and of themselves. We have orders for thousands now of radios that we're starting to produce and deliver. And that model seems to work a lot better. They feel like they're getting something tangible that they can hold in their hands for the money that they're giving you. So that's probably one thing that changed along the way. We actually are a bootstrap company. We weren't funded by VC, and so we've had to pay as we go and find paying customers to pay the bills. And for that kind of a company, I think one of the things I've learned is that, I guess one of the things I did right or thought right from the beginning was you need to get a bunch of good people together and then stay in business long enough if you want good things to happen. And that actually has worked well at both Viasat and at Trellisware. I think that was a good model to follow. I'll mention one thing that didn't work so well. And this probably is a lesson learned you can find in almost any business book that you pick up, but there's nothing like learning it firsthand, up close and personal, to really have it sink in. We started the company out with, like I said, some really good technology, and our motto was better matters. And we went out and sold this technology, and I'll give you one example. We were working with Singular at the time. We had some software. We incorporated our algorithms of software. They ran it through all their simulations, all their analysis, and this was before AT&T bought them. They came back and said, you know, if we put your software in our cell phones, we could double our capacity without putting up any new cell towers or anything. And we thought, slam dunk, we're in business here. Why wouldn't you want twice the number of paying customers? Well, to make a long story short, in the end, they set the bar so that they only got about 15 to 20% capacity improvement, but they could have 10 different companies that could provide it. And so they were able to compete them all against each other to get the lowest price and the best terms. Not necessarily, I still don't know if that was the best return on investment, but I think in a lot of the big consumer markets, that's not untypical. So we learned the hard way, I guess, that better doesn't always matter. So now our motto is when nothing else works. We look for markets where they need something, they know they need something that nobody else is able to provide, and we believe we have a company that's capable of providing that, and that's actually been working pretty well.
Thank you very much. I'd now like to open it up if anybody has a question they want to direct to the panel. Giuseppe?
I have a curiosity. When there is one pattern which is pretty typical of startups, we all know some colleagues who were lucky, had a good idea, made a company. After 2 years or 3 years, they have enough PR, enough recognition, and some bigger company buys them. This guy made a bundle and essentially walk away. The curiosity is, when you sell your company, you had in mind to create something that would last in time, become the new Qualcomm or the new Broadcom, or like a go sell your patent and become rich?
You sold yours.
Yeah.
Okay, okay, let me, okay. I think that really depends on the technology and also your personal goal, right? So sometimes it actually is not easy to sell your patent itself, because when you sell your patent in the first place, normally you won't get good price because people say, well, yes, it's one technology, you don't know whether it works or not, right? I think in some cases, I think probably it's much easier for you to really develop the product or service around the patents. Okay, so in that case, then depends on your personal goal. If you really want to continue, you can continue. If you want to you get tired of, you can sell. So this is why now emphasize a lot on the IP protections. Okay, because once you protect your IP, then actually this will leave a lot of flexibility for you to exit your company. So some company may acquire your startup maybe for many different reasons, right? They may not go for the market you tried. Okay, they only may want to apply your patent for their own business model. So this is why the protecting IP certainly I think is the first step you have to take, and that leaves a lot of flexibility down the road.
If I can, my personal feeling is that no matter what, I think you want to build something to last. Try to build something that you'd be happy to run as long as you can. And I think if you do that, whether you're acquired or not, you've got something of value there. I've never been a big believer in kind of trying to build something to flip it. And I think maybe you have to be a much better marketing person. I'm not sure that's a good model for engineers, but I think if you build something that's of value to last, then I think good things can happen whichever way it goes.
My experience is maybe, or my opinion on it is, I guess, similar to yours, in that I ran a pretty nice group when I was at the Aerospace Corporation. I had a reasonable amount of freedom. We solved a lot of problems quickly, so we were doing a lot of rapid prototyping work, and it was across a wide variety of different disciplines, and I was able to personally get involved. And as with any company, I ran into different times along the way where I wish I had more freedom to do this. I wish I had more flexibility. And so when I left to start something, I really had no exit strategy in mind. I really just wanted to reproduce the people, the skill set, the infrastructure, that sort of thing, and then solve those same kind of problems, but have more control. That was naive a little bit, I think, but still, that still is my guiding goal. And so I don't have an exit strategy in mind per se, but I'm trying to reproduce that collegial environment where we solved lots of really hard problems for some important organizations and did it quickly, rapidly, and with a lot of fun. So.
Andrew?
You all described the travails of starting a new company very well, but I didn't hear, in most cases, and perhaps in any case, what is your product, or what is your service? Could you just go through one at a time?
Sure, they only gave us 5 minutes, so. No, that's a good point. Trellisware, we build, actually, it sounds like a large variety of things, but at the heart we have some of the techniques that Keith and Andreas have developed and that we've figured out how to make practical. And so we build equipment that runs from HF till laser communications. Probably the biggest product we have right now is a mobile ad hoc networking system that we sell, the entire system, radios and so forth, for not only voice but IP data and real-time video. But we do a lot of different, again, probably the common denominator is communications problems that nobody else seems to have been able to solve. Those are the things that we, and that somebody values, obviously. Those are the things that we've gone after.
Yes, my early startup built the software to accelerate the internet connection. Because in early days, a lot of home, I think even in US, right? was still accessing internet through dial-up. The speed was pretty low. Also in the wireless, the connection was pretty low. We're talking about what, 14 kilobits per second I think in around 2000. So that's our focus point at that time. So our technology is based on the compression. So because my XP is on compression, we do all kinds of compression. We have probably one of the best lossless online compression algorithm for email and website, web page. And along the way, I also developed probably one of the best, the jailbreak encoder, and which actually, so by the time my company was acquired by Research in Motion, then I started to move to the video, so video coding, video transcoding. So we also have one of the best, proper video codec, and actually some of the idea was based on information theory. So once again, it's traced back to Shannon. I think that type of idea is now actually it's now changing the way how the quantization is designed in the image and video coding. If you look at so I chatted with some of my friends this morning. So if you look at the current video codecs, okay, the video codec has, I think, 3 major components. The first one is the so-called the motion compensation, so which is based on signal processing. The second one is quantization. The last one is lossless entropy coding. So I think in the past 30 years, okay, so we had so many different generation codec. They are all based on improvement from the signal processing component, which is the motion compensation. So when I look at this problem, I look at this from information theory perspective. So we did something in the quantization entropy coding. So now when you design the quantization, you have to look at the entropy coding. This one should be tightly controlled. So this is why we changed the way how we design the entropy coding. I think moving forward, I think early this morning, Dr. Whitehead also asked the question of the video uploading, right? Uploading. I think for the video uploading, there is challenging because for the real-time uploading, you have a bandwidth issue, you also have a power issue. The power has 2 kinds of powers. One is the radio power for transmitting video on real time. The other one is the processing power, so encoding power for generating the compressed video stream. If you look at all the current video codecs, I think they target at different market. They target for the broadcasting scenario, not for this mobile video application uploading. Thank you.
Our company is it's a service company providing consulting to a very niche client base within DoD and other areas like that. So the type of problems that we solve tend to be involved in the acquisition of large systems at different points in the life cycle. So from the requirements to the actual design to building and then deployment. And so what we'll end up doing a lot of times is we'll rapid prototype a lot. We do a lot of that rapid prototype or simulation development or modeling or just paper analysis to come up with solutions that will address an open problem at some point along the way. So, this past few weeks we've been, as an example, we've been modeling multipath in the inside of a fairing for a launch vehicle to understand the type of distortion that we've experienced in some previous launches. So that's involved some multipath simulation work. It's also involved some antenna, some physical optics analysis work, building up some models from scratch, or using some off-the-shelf things. That's an example of the next few weeks. We're going to be involved in ground testing of some pretty exotic algorithms that do a really important mission, and it's a big open problem within this community. And so we'll have people from, myself included and others, at different places associated with that test. And we've, in preparing for that test, we've built hardware to do ground collection. We've built different types of simulation tools to model the environment and to optimize the experiments, and then a number of other pieces of software that we'll use to analyze the data after the results come back. So the product really is intellectual property that we give to basically everyone that's working in this field, as well as the customers, and we constantly sort of reinvent. So from year to year, we're working on a variety of different problems that we then give away and start from scratch.
Okay. Dr. Viterbi, I never started a company. I joined many years ago a great company founded by Dr. Viterbi.
They're longer than I was.
And but my current company, MediaTek, is a 15-year-old company. They started out 15 years ago doing optical storage device like the CD-ROM and CD rewrite for PC and laptop, and then evolving into DVD, and then they become more a consumer product company doing all ASICs, just ASIC part. The DVD player used by consumer at home, and then Blu-ray disc players. And then similar technology can be applied to digital TV, so all the digital TV standards in the world. So MediaTek is worldwide #1 in all of the above categories, probably with the vast majority of the market share. And then the rest of our business is very much similar to Qualcomm's cell phone chips, probably #2 behind Qualcomm in smartphone chips, probably #3 in connectivity, like Blu-ray, Wi-Fi, FM, GPS, those chips, and in that category we're probably #3. Then we have other businesses like in set-top box and stuff. So a lot of things related to multimedia in the early days, and now more towards communications and multimedia combined.
Ubli.
So, does it matter that you had a PhD? And if so, why?
Oh, sorry.
The question was, does it matter if you had a PhD, and if so, why? So I had to interpret what Andreas and Keith were telling me, so I think it probably helped me in that regard. Personally, I would say, I probably never used what I did on my dissertation since I finished it. That probably doesn't surprise anybody. But I think one of the things you do learn as you go through that process is how to solve a problem that nobody solved before, how to figure out if you're going down a rabbit trail or a dead end and stop and go back, and a lot of those kinds of skills you can probably get in other ways, but you certainly get in most PhD programs, and I think that fits exactly in what you need for a startup.
Yeah, I think all of us have a PhD, right?
You have 2.
I have 2, yes. So I think, in my opinion, it matters because it's more like this the basic training, analytic thinking. So that really help you down the road. So when I started, I didn't know anything about business, right? So I just basically I just bring my 2 ears to the meeting, right? So when they say something, I remember. When I come back, I do the analysis. So I think it matters.
Yeah, I would agree. For me, for 2 reasons. One, when I first left the larger company to try to start, I was just an independent consultant, so I was going from place to place, and so just having a doctorate was important because it helped me get in the door, and people would listen to the results that I provided, and so from that perspective, yes. And then the other perspective is that I think maybe you've gathered from the description of the things that I do, we kind of move from problem to problem, and they're not always within a very focused area. They span a large number of disciplines within EE and other areas, and so just the style of training that I think goes on here kind of forces you to develop this ability to quickly learn some new things and be productive in that area, and incorporate that into your toolbox of skills, and then move on to the next area. And I'm not sure that without that, and particularly without it from this place that I would have that same ability. So it has helped, and I believe it continues to help for that reason. Those reasons.
Yeah, I guess that the answer really depends on the person. I've seen many brilliant engineers without a doctorate degree, and they probably outperform many of those with the doctorate degrees. So it depends on their personal skills and how hard they'll go after a task. But my personal, for me as a person, then it matters. Like many of the panelists have mentioned, it built up the methodology for attacking problems. I happen to have the fortune to take classes from many of probably the best professors in the world in communications. I took a coding class from Dr. Welch, and some of the stuff I still use very often become part of my intuition. Took a signal processing class from Dr. Schultz, and Andrea taught me the 562B, and unfortunately that's the only A- I got at the USC. I will remember that forever. And Dr. Weber taught me 664, I remember. So many of the good trainings, after repeatedly going through reviews and using them in the field as I become an engineer, then it become part of the intuition. So I think those, I call it extended training, does help.
I'm going to generalize Ubli's question, and I'll ask whether a USC PhD made a difference. Other than you,
I mean, I'd say so. I mean, you know, there's no. Yeah, you know, I believe I stumbled across you know, the best communications program on the planet, and you know, just having this the collection of professors, the diversity of their experiences and their training, and the ability to to get all their tools, or at least some of their tools, into our own toolbox. You know, I know of I know people from lots of other universities, and I believe our training here was, you know, to some extent probably, you know, fairly unique. But I mean, I think the answer that you want to hear is yes. USC is the so yes, that's the answer.
As you were starting up your company, what percentage of your time or effort you would say was actually still dedicated to the engineering or the scientific questions, and how much was really more about the management and learning how to manage and lead a company?
Tom, do you want to start us off?
They're all pointing to me. Hard to put an exact percentage on it. In the very early days in starting the company, I think actually a lot was on the technical side, because we had a very technical product or core of our product, and we're trying to figure out where it applied, right? How, you know, what markets could it apply to? And so while I wasn't cranking equations or running long simulations necessarily, I think being able to understand the work of those that was a key part of that job. I'd say, from my own experience, the bigger you get and the broader you get, the lower that percentage becomes, and you spend more time, unfortunately, dealing with people kinds of things. But still, in my case, I'd say the intuition that's come from the background, and the ability to quickly pick up what's being done and what some of the trade-offs are is very valuable.
Yeah, I think to echo that, I think there are so many ways for you to run a startup company. Like in my case, I did not take any leave, so I did this on site because I had a very good partner. Okay. Also, I hired the president to manage day-to-day operations. I focus mainly on the key technologies and the directions, and also the key negotiation with the many large customers.
So I'd agree. I wish I could spend more time doing the engineering, but you know, since I have a certain vision for what I want to do, what kind of customers I want, what kinds of solutions I want to have, I find myself spending probably, you know, half as much of my time working on the business side of things, you know, personnel, contracts, looking for new business, you know, dealing with the administration of current business, as you know. So you know, so in the course of a week, if I work 80 hours, I'm probably spending half of that on the business side and half on the engineering side of it. My goal, probably all of our goals, I don't know. I like the engineering side of it more, and so as you know, as I if I'm able to be lucky enough to continue to stay in, I'll figure out ways to get the business side down. Except you know, while a lot of that part of the work is not as attractive, it's really important because you know, when I even before I started my own company and was working for other companies, I would stalk people for 2 years before I hired them. So trying to hire the right kind of people is really an important thing. So finding that right mix of people, skills, personality mix, that takes time, and that's not engineering time. That's that's sort of businessy kinds of things. And similarly, when you're looking for work, there's lots of work that I can get, but I don't want any kind of work. I want to have work that'll have an impact. That when the folks that work for me are doing the work, they're going to feel like it's important and it's meaningful and it's going to actually be applied to something that's important. And it takes time to find that right mixture of work as well. And then just making sure that the employees are cared for and fed is that's important as well. I mean, a company, particularly in the services area like mine, its fuel is its people. So you have to make sure that they're happy. So and again, that takes time to make sure that they're getting what they need, that they're happy. Are they getting the kind of training? Are they doing the kind of work? And my wife was yelling at me yesterday because I was really tired, and I ended up in a fender bender on my way home. And my wife said, "You shouldn't have, you knew you were tired. You shouldn't have gone in the morning." And and I was explaining. I find myself explaining to my wife a lot, but I explained to her one of my employees wanted to get together, and we've been working on some orbital analysis software, and he wanted to spend a couple hours with me in the morning. Now, my skill, I'm not very strong in orbitology or that sort of thing, but I wanted to spend time with him. I don't know that I got as much out of it as I knew that he would get out of it. So I got to work at 6 a.m. so I could meet with him for 3 hours before I went off and did a number of other things. And again, while that's not rewarding from an engineering perspective for me, it's, I think, a critical part of me making sure that the people that work for me are happy and are felt like they are being listened to. So, as much as I may not want to spend a lot of time doing the business side of it, it's really important if I want this to be successful. So I believe it'll continue to be a big part of it for me, at least.
No, okay. Do you want to go to the next one? Sure.
My question revolves around the synergy between business and technology. You guys are all technologists, you all have PhD degrees. When you started your company, a big part of it, you can build the best widget or best chip in the world, but you have to market it. I'm assuming you guys didn't go to MBA from Wharton or Harvard Business School. How did you handle the marketing aspect of your company? Did you kind of learn that on your own and do it yourself, or did you hire a person from HBS to come in and market your product?
Okay. The best marketing guy I know of happens to be an engineer. His name is Erwin Jacob. I think Andy probably would agree. He got his PhD from I think MIT or Cornell. He went to Cornell and then went on to MIT, got a PhD. Again, in my careers at Qualcomm and MediaTek, I found that the MBA degree helps people learn certain methodology, but the true sense comes almost to certain people naturally, and to other people by modeling after a great guy like Irwin or some other folks. If I'm sure some folks around Steve Jobs must observe him and try to copy some of his thinking and behavior. But you are right that the great technologies needs great marketing to market it, to put it onto the market. One of the things I face these days is I have the luxury to have worked for a great American company, Qualcomm, as well as a great Asian company, MediaTek, and I see the drastic comparisons between these two companies. And both sides have great technologies, but Qualcomm is obviously by far much stronger, many dBs, many tens of dBs stronger in marketing. And at the end of the day, you will see that if you try to create value, it's not just the technology. I would say the two companies, from the technology perspective, it's within 3 dB or even close to 0 dB. But the marketing sides cause the big difference in value generations. So absolutely, for any company, startup or big ones, a lot of things hinge on how well you do your marketing. By marketing, I mean many things. Marketing means include product planning. Okay, so that a lot of people thought that's just engineering, but no, it's not. It's also including product planning. You have to know the demand well. You have to know your competitors' stuff well. You have to know where the trend gonna be in say 2-3 years, because that's typically how long you develop a product. So if you forecast is wrong, then you're going to be miserable through 3 years down the road. And in this business, a lot of company took one misstep, and it's very hard to recover. So it's very important.
Yeah, I'd just like to add, I think I got my MBA by working side by side with some really good people, and I think there's nothing that is better than that. If you think you want to do something like this, if you can find some good people in the areas you want to learn or you want to get better in, and work side by side with them, I think that's the best way to learn on the job.
Yeah, I think this the marketing is certainly pretty complicated process, right? It really depends on how you view yourself, how you view your company. I think also depends on the geographic area. I mean, in Canada, it's quite different because we do not have deep pocket. So, like in my company, we only got a little money from VC. So from day one, I decided that okay, the approach we took will be first we get the low-hanging fruit. Okay, we try to get sign some small customer first. So in that way, I think you get a lot of benefit because employee will be happy, will be empowered, and also you get your reputation out. Eventually, you can build up. So basically, as long as I decide the direction, then the rest is run by the people we hired from marketing. Thanks.
So I'd agree with everything that's been said here. I haven't spent a lot of time or a lot of energy in the marketing side of things, and over the number of years, I've found that it would have been a lot easier to have a marketing person right up front, because I find myself now that I kind of understand what needs to be done, doing a number of the things that I believe marketing people would tell you right out the chute. Branding, identifying the forecasting where the openings are in your niche areas, how your company is going to grow, what kinds of tools and resources, and all those things I find myself doing. but they are really important, and probably the most important, at least in the industry that I am in right now, is this sort of this branding idea. Well, branding and the forecasting. Branding because, again, when I started out, it was just me going from project to project, and the marketing kind of it worked on its own. People knew me; they knew what kind of programs I'd worked on before. I had a reputation within this community, so marketing yourself is fairly easy if people know you. But when you want to go from selling Greg Mitchell's services to selling this company, it's important to identify the company with the kind of products and services, and that company is going to work all night. They're going to do whatever it takes to get it done. So let's bring that person in. And so again, I sort of stumbled through the marketing piece heretofore, but now I'm taking that a lot more seriously and identifying areas and working a lot harder to make sure that I don't have to be the principal investigator on every project that comes through our door. So that's really important.
I'd like to just comment as somebody who has started a couple of companies. I think all this can sort of be summarized as you need to really love what you're doing every day, especially at the beginning, but in general that's true. And what that means is that you need partners or employees who love doing stuff that you don't love.
That's correct.
Do we have time for one more question, or? Oh.
Well, if there's someone, I can't see behind me.
Okay. Did you have a question? Oh.
What's the biggest mistake that you made?
Please don't say starting a company.
Or something you wish you had done differently that you would like to share with someone following in your footsteps. Don't do this.
Yeah. I'll start. I mean, when we first did our introductions, I was talking about getting this piece of paper and writing down the things that you need. And I really kind of stumbled into a new business without really thinking through a lot of those things. And it's running a business now is hard, but it was many dB harder back at the beginning because I didn't do those things. I knew what I had a vision. I had an image of what I wanted down the road, and it looked exactly like what I had today or back then. The same kind of labs and the same kind of cool work and the same kind of cool people and great infrastructure. But I didn't really lay out all the steps. I laid out the first step, which is quitting my company and putting my name out on the field. But I didn't really lay out all these other steps, and that made things very difficult. I never had to live off of a credit card or anything like that. But in this business, it's not one of those where I can get investment money to start a consulting company, right? So it meant that I worked a lot, a tremendous amount, and many times for no pay. There's a lot of we call business development activity where you're just solving problems for free so that people will get a sense for what you can do and what kind of things. So I believe that was a mistake, and I happened to maybe be more stubborn than some of my peers. So I stuck it out, and I also happen to have a family that's pretty understanding of my stubbornness. So I was able to keep it going. But I know a lot of companies start and then they end because they're not able to make it through that hard time. And I think one can avoid all that if you lay out those steps and identify where your weaknesses are and where your strengths are, and really, really play to your strengths and try to bring in people that, if you can, bring in people who complement you in those areas where you're not strong. There are areas I'm not a detail person, and forcing me to be a detail person makes me miserable, and it takes me 10 times longer to work, those accounting details than it would be for somebody that you can bring on who loves that kind of stuff. And so I think that economically, emotionally, all those things, that it helps if you can really lay out what your product is going to be, where you're going to fit into that, and what you're going to need in order to make that successful, and be conservative about what you can do outside of your comfort zone, and then eat humble pie and get somebody else to help you in those areas where you're not strong. Someone else made any mistakes?
No more mistakes.
I've made a lot of mistakes. I can keep going.
Well, I think it depends on how you look at the mistakes, because if you really, if you really pay attention to what you're doing, I think no matter what you do, that's helpful down the road. Even if that one doesn't work out, you can learn something from it. So that's my attitude to the thing I have done so.
I kind of touched on the one thing earlier, that, you know, thinking that the best technology, the best thing out there is going to sell itself, or even that the customer is going to recognize that, you know, that's the best thing, or that they're going to buy it because it's so much better than everyone else. I think a real key is finding customers and markets that really value what you have, and making sure that, you know, it's enough different that, you know, you really are the ones that can provide what they need. And I think a lot of us, particularly in this group, you know, we think the technology, the best answer, the highest number of dBs ought to win, but that isn't always the case, for sure.
Some people
If you want.
I just had one comment. I started a business while I was in our company, while I was at C, as most of you know. So let me just tell you one thing you should do. You should start a business and you're a professor at the university, you better have a good relationship with the dean.
I think that's a great way to end. Can we thank our panel? We really appreciate it. Thank you so much.